There's a difference between how just like normies view eugenics and the way liberals, liberal strivers, liberal elitists, liberal snobs view eugenics. Normies view eugenics as like something they saw in that comic book or on the TV once. They think eugenics, like Wikipedia done told them, is the invention of the Nazis, whom were very bad, and therefore no one should get into their eugenics, which is bad. Okay, eugenics is bad, and they seem to think that eugenics is like I don't know, is like the science fiction bullshit eugenics, where you're tampering or altering in some way artificially, or some kind of imposed outside artificial scientific means, some kind of technological means, in changing the raw, essence of human traits themselves, even down to the desired phenotype. Horror of horrors, uniformity in nature, Well, from normies, I'm like, well, I don't know. Normies view eugenics is naturally anti-eugenic because most normies are dysgenic. That makes sense. It's not a judgment on them for being what they are, but they are that way. Liberal view on eugenics is like a lot of things that liberals do. They do it themselves, but it's not something you say. It's not something you say out in public, right? That would be an indiscretion. That would be an impropriety. We just don't talk about that, etc. Well, okay. So it's just liberals being liberals. Liberals pursue eugenics. The mating habits of most liberals, for them, are pretty eugenic. They always tend to seek people that have more money and status, or, it's like a warped, very shallow external view of eugenics. And these are the people that lecture us about how morally bad the central ideas of eugenics are. Look at the poverty and insufficiency and shittiness of their own lives. Their own constant striving for petty selfish advantage. For money and status and popularity, and I say the right things and people like me. But it also comes to be that there are basically eugenically sound, even photogenic, TV-ready face type liberal people. Well, once again, what they're doing is they're engaging in in-group selection with with this system of taboos and shibboleths that they have for themselves and out-group, I mean, how is the world of a lot of liberals and progressives not like this closed world, which is governed by their own mating ethics? I mean, if they made it all, I think most of the time it's just a way to keep inheritance within their rich or upper limit bourgeois families. So curiously, they're in a position of viewing any other white as being, belief in bigotry or racism or endogamy or eugenics. For them, that's just another badge of your white nigger status. That's the way they look at you, a good liberal snob. He's actually the most common type of snobs. It's hard to have, in a well-functioning type of aristocratic type society, there's not a lot of time for people to be snobby. Because, the superior people, right? I know that's a dirty word. Or people who are at least superior for what they're doing in society. You can be a superior janitor. It's a low status job that still requires regularity and going the extra mile, stuff like that. So you could say being a janitor is has more possibilities for that type of person, but so when someone is contemptuous of even discussing biopolitical questions or biopolitical reform, right, in the case of eugenics, then they get shit all over on because they don't fit into someone else's biopolitics. What gets more down to the bone than biopolitics in human beings? So there's a reason why eugenics is such a hot button issue. Eugenics, anti-humanism, philosophical anti-humanism, cultural anti-humanism, and just screwing their elitism and wanting our elitism. All of this still plays out, that's why eugenics is, some people see it as something totally peripheral, as something we can do later. Others view it as absolutely, worldview essential. I'm in the latter camp, but I understand why someone opposed to eugenics is expressing merely their biopolitic. Anyhow, you can also see the microbiopolitic, you could call it, at work in individual choices for renouncing progeny. When normies renounce progeny for mostly because I can't afford it, and they probably can't, right? They probably can't afford children. I've seen too many couples, they're not married, and they're working 4 jobs between the two of them. They're renting, they have no property, they have no security, and they just have 2 children, which spend most of their time in daycare. Later on it's public school. Early on it's Head Start. They may be nice normies. They may spend their lives just working, paying bills, minding their own business. For them, that's perfectly appropriate. But for them to get all huffy when it comes to any imposition of on either their breeding habits or that of others, they don't even know what a raw deal they're doing themselves by that. We've seen how eugenic-oriented governments gave a lot of normies that are childless, or how can I put this, subpopulated. In other words, they don't have enough children. You know what I mean? This is kind of similar to how can I put this? Fighting unemployment versus fighting underemployment. You know what I mean? societies with a lot of social mobility and economic freedom, it's inevitable that you might get some pretty high unemployment, right? So there's just inherent things that come with the territory of this. And it's like that with, the question of human quality. How do we socially pursue it? Is it a valid goal, right? As soon as you bring up eugenics, all of these cans of worms get opened. And it drives the normies crazy, because normie brain is not meant to ponder these types of questions. So, yeah, that's the main reason normies are underchilded, you could say. Why normies might have a renunciation of reproduction. They might do it for spiritual reasons, but that's, I don't know. Chalk it up to religion, poverty, and this is assuming they're good, responsible normies, right? But a lot of normies are childless just simply because they're selfish or because they're degenerate. They just might be lazy and improvident, Those words to modern day people's ears sting, but to me they don't. And I'm a childless guy who lives off of less than $26,000 a year now. So, for most of my life, actually. But why would liberals renounce reproduction voluntarily? Well, a lot of liberals, despite being better educated, and they'll be the first to tell you, better educated, higher average IQ, right? They're more economically secure. They have means. They belong to the bourgeois, aspirant, and upper classes. Class is still a reality. How do they, it's still, renouncing reproduction can be a eugenic choice, a eugenic expression. Like, if you are a biological degenerate and you don't want to pass that stuff on, and, or you're ugly, and you're just a bad hand, and you choose not to reproduce, well, that's noble, right? So I think there's an element of wanting to be that in some of the better examples of liberals who renounce reproduction, right? And once again, liberals love signaling. They want to show how virtuous they are. They're not contributing to the first world burden on the rest of the world. They're fighting they're fighting against pollution by reducing their carbon footprint, for not doing what every sound living thing in nature does. So you just might have a bunch of rich old degenerate liberals not reproducing. As elites, have always kind of had a problem with, the smaller and the more rigorous the selection criteria within a particular group or caste, the tougher it's usually a little bit tougher to get them to, be really prolific. It just takes more to set up the kind of environment, to create the material conditions, to set up the type of environment, to develop the ethos and the internal culture among such, so, I don't know. It just really gets the noggin jogging. But if you have you can't have an honest conversation with normies or liberals about eugenics because their minds are just automatically closed. Eugenics didn't used to be so taboo among liberals, actually. They just felt it should be applied for traits that they felt were quintessentially liberal. So, But at least they recognized that the genie was out of the bottle. It was going to have to be something that they would have to deal with. But those were old-time liberals. We don't even have liberals like that anymore. So it really makes you wonder. I mean, is it all mute? Is it all moot, right, these issues? I don't think so. They're real. The fact of the matter is, everybody already practices eugenics, and that they would prefer to reproduce, if they want to reproduce, with someone who has at least complementary or superior traits to themselves. I mean, let's be honest here. Let's cut the crap. Nobody really wants to have kids that are dumber or uglier or, fatter or worse, in other respects, character-wise. Than them? No, of course not. So the fact of the matter is, everyone already practices eugenics. Until you show me liberals that are out there, beautiful people that are out there, screwing people that are deliberately, screwing people deliberately that are like retarded or just misshapen or duds or otherwise, just ugly people, deliberately doing it to work on themselves, then all I see from them is hypocrisy and BS. Anyhow, it's going to be a long one. Bye-bye.